Hey guys, Dr. Eric Hooker here, bringing you another short course from operators to owners. And today we're going to focus on the topic that we talked about in our podcast that's going to release on the 11th of December here. And that's that peer comparison heat map. Now, some of you have probably heard me talk about this before if you were down at the 2019 AABP convention. And down there, I gave a practice tip, that short 10-minute practice tip talk they do to kind of capstone the entire conference. And it was at this point that I first unveiled the heat map that we use at our veterinary clinic that has really kind of facilitated some really good conversations with our clients, as well as a lot of change in terms of protocols, handling employee management, and even some pretty significant bottom line changes for their income. So what I wanted to do today is bring to you guys this table and show you a little bit of what we've done, and also invite you to join the community. Again, our website is otovets.com. You can join the Facebook community at otovets.com/Facebook. If you sign up for that, please include your email to join our email list. The first and second weeks in January, I'll be releasing a training. And it'll be a series of steps basically over the course of 2 weeks that will take you from having no consulting content to having this particular document completely made and ready to roll with all your clients. It's going to take you through onboarding clients. It's going to take you through marketing it. It's going to take you through creation of this actual document specifically for your veterinary clinic. And then it's going to take you through the conversations that you should be having with that client. And then how do you get to the follow-up conversations to improve your consulting portfolio and also have that big impact on the animal husbandry, the employee management, and the overall bottom line for your clients. So again, please go to otovets.com/Facebook and sign up so you can get into that training. I'm going to offer it for a short period of time, and then I'm going to bring it back out a little bit later in 2020. So if you don't want to miss it, just sign up today, join our community. There's some pretty good discussion in there. I roll out daily content, and you get to be the first ones to know about blog posts, articles, scientific articles, podcasts. So just join our community, please, so I can get my message out, share my passion with you guys, and hopefully help you guys develop professionally. So with that plug in place, let me just kind of bring it to the table, talk you through a little bit of what we've actually done with this. So if you look at the screen here in Excel, what we've got here is a pretty big table. And I'm going to shrink it down, don't worry. But what I want you to see is the overall encompassing picture. So what we've got is in this quarter, this is quarter 3 of 2019, we had 20 dairies participate. So there's 20 different columns. Each column represents a different dairy that's going to participate in this. Now, if I can shrink this down a little bit for you guys so you can kind of see the rest of it here, I'm just going to pull out let's just say 16 of these dairies here. I'm just going to hide the columns. It's not going to affect the data at all, but it's going to make it a little bit easier for you guys to see and interpret this. So let me zoom in. Okay, so what you're going to see, again, kind of like I described, each individual column here is going to represent an individual dairy. Straight down is all their information. What we do then is blind them once we make this, and we'll have a key. So we send out an email to each veterinarian, and that email contains this blinded table and then a key table. So then you know which dairy corresponds with which individual column. Try and switch it up as much as you can because they'll try to infer and figure out who's who on there. It's just human nature. They want to know. But what we try and do is kind of switch that up and keep things kind of fresh so they can't do that. So the next thing that we do here is start putting in the information that we actually want to track. And when we were creating this table, we kind of determined that especially for some of the reproductive parameters, it was really important that everybody kind of had an idea of how they could compare to each other, and they needed to know where the voluntary wait periods were for each one of these dairies. So what we did is the first thing we put up here is the stated voluntary wait period. Now, we generally will ask the farmer what their stated voluntary weight is and then confirm that voluntary weight with their records system. That's something that I've found you almost have to do because someone will say, oh, I don't breed till this point, but then they'll start to cherry pick. And that'll affect the numbers and how to interpret them as well. So having that up there is just important for clients to be able to interpret this graph, as well as veterinarians. So on that rest of that left-hand side of the column here, what we can see is clearly we did not change this square yet to quarter 3, but it is quarter 3 of 2019 on here. And what we did is we selected 30 different parameters through the entire left-hand side here. And what we were looking for is production parameters and profitability estimates, things like that. So we broke each different section down. And what you can see is I've kind of basically changed the shading in the cells of each different section. So the first section here, we have some production-based data. The next section, we have a little bit of transition-based data. Then we go into some repro data, some udder health down here. And then we kind of have this miscellaneous category, calf DOA and sold and died less than 60. So we just kind of group those together. I guess sold and died less than 60 could go into transition, but those are kind of some outlying agents for cows that we wanted to track. And finally, after our first couple months of this, we had some questions and people wanted to see a little bit of heifer data. So we have some basic heifer data here. This is something that we're still reviewing and trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of convey this point. We're not completely convinced average age at fresh is a good way to do that. A lot of what we did and included that initially is because we had a couple dairies we wanted to kind of get them to breed their heifers a little bit earlier. Again, saving a little bit of money on rearing costs and things like that. So that was there to stimulate that initial conversation. Now we're kind of having these discussions on how we modernize or make this more of an applicable number. But obviously heifer conception rate is still very, very important in the dairy world. So again, indicated each different section by a different color change, just so it's a little bit easier to follow across the table. Otherwise, you just kind of have rows and rows and rows of data that are very, very hard to track across when the client's actually reading it. So the next thing that we did with this table is now if we move to the far right-hand side here, we can see the minimum, the maximum, and the average here. And we didn't want to just provide an average because it doesn't tell you how potentially good someone is or how potentially bad they are. It also doesn't tell you, who's skewing the graph one way or the other. The other nice thing with the minimum maximum in there is as you're troubleshooting this or as you're proofing it before you bring it out to clients, it's a quick little area where you can scan and find errors very quickly. Common errors that I see when we do some data entry into this, failure to put a decimal in the right spot, failure to include an extra zero, things like that are really quick to find when you're using these minimum and maximum columns. But the other thing with this is it adds a little bit of power, a little bit of data power for the client. Again, giving them an idea of how far away from bad they are or how close they are to being the best. And clients really like to see that. And then right where is the middle point? Everyone always wants to see an average. We kind of know from our scientific and our training background in statistics, averages aren't as powerful as the average person might believe, but they are a point at which we can use as a reference point to kind of tell our dairies where they're at. Versus the middle of the pack per se. So with that said, let's just get to the power of the actual table itself. And that's the data. That's all of these squares here that are populated with the individual dairies data. So what we've done here is we've created a heat map. And if you listen to the podcast, again, otovets.com/podcast, got to put that plug in there. Catch that 1211 podcast. But what we've done is we've created a heat map. And a heat map, again, just shows you how close or how far away you are from the endpoints. So in this case, our heat map is just broken down into quartiles. You can make it, we could have made it a little bit more descriptive, but realistically, I think quartiles gives us enough power without creating so much of a range that it's hard to interpret. So in this table, what you can see is a variety of colors. And I apologize if you're colorblind. My colorblind co-owners give me shit for this, but I apologize if you're colorblind. But the darker green, so the square I'm on right now is dark green for those of you who are colorblind. The darker green is the upper quartile, so the best in the group. The light green is the next one, so the second from the, basically number one loser. And then we have the third quartile, which is these light red tiles. And then finally, the fourth quartile or the bottom quartile is this bright red tile that I'm on right now. So what we've done is basically put in a custom equation in here that, mind you, was not easy to make or understand, but I will definitely be giving you guys that in January, showing you how to do it. But what it does is, in a simple explanation, what we've done is we've basically done some conditional formatting. So if you go to the conditional formatting tab, you have all these different things. You can highlight them based upon, being higher or lower than a certain value and things like that. And when we first put this table out, I just did, if you're higher than the 50%, average or higher than the average mark, you got one color. If you're lower, you didn't get a color. But what we found is, again, averages aren't super powerful when you start to look at statistical significance. And getting people into quartiles helped us facilitate a little bit more change on the dairy. So I did some research, actually went on a couple Excel forms, asked some questions, and was able to get kind of a quartile custom equation for making a table like this. And so I can kind of show you what it's done, but in each individual row, so across for a specific parameter we want to look at, there's 3 quartile equations in there. And each quartile equation basically assigns a color depending upon where they fall. The equation's relatively specific, and if you don't get it quite right, it'll kind of kick you out, knock you out, and it won't quite work. So again, like I said, I don't want to just give it to you guys right now because it does require some explanation on what you're doing and why you're doing it. Because if you want to change this table or adjust it and you don't understand that, there is a chance you'll throw this all off. So again, I want to do and walk you through these equations a little bit more specifically, and that's why I'm holding back on this training until about January. Again, first and second week in January, really going to focus on it there, so that I can walk you through it at that point. But what you need to know is these are all conditionally formatted, again, to get you in the quartiles. And that's how you get this table. It's pretty easy. Again, like I said, you can do this for dairy, but I think there's some power in beef. I mean, if you do some dairy goat medicine or beef goat medicine, anything production-wise that you can do some benchmarking, or you have multiple parameters that you can compare across operations. I see this heat map as being a pretty useful tool. And I just want to give you one more specific example before I let you guys go. And let's just take a look here at this dairy number 5. And dairy number 5 here is a dairy, it's not the highest or most progressive dairy in our practice, but they do practice, good production. They just kind of have been a little bit later adopters on some of the technologies that we've seen. So let's just specifically focus on the change that we can facilitate using this particular graph, just in the actual reproductive category here, okay? So we have got the preg rate, conception rate, first service for lactation 1, first service for greater than lactation 1, and then the overall conception rates between lactation 1 and greater than lactation 1. So clearly this particular dairy here has the ability to improve. They are in the 3rd quartile for pregnancy rate. Their conception rate is actually pretty good in lactation 1, lagging behind again 3rd quartile or so in first service lactation 1, and conception rate greater than lactation 1. So there's definitely some points at which they can improve in this area. So, things that we can look at in this particular dairy is making sure that they're doing these double lute offsings, getting that second shot of luteolise into them to capture that 6 to 12% conception rate bump. Again, this is a dairy that doesn't have particularly great heat abatement. So again, when we're looking at this Q3 voluntary weight period analysis, they are going to be highly affected by the heat that we had in the summer. So seasonality is going to have an effect here. So again, facilitating the conversation of heat abatement, facilitating the conversation of changing protocols that we've had for a long period of time. All that's really easily done when you're looking across this table, and they can start to compare themselves against, even if we look at dairies A and B here, you start to look at the preg rates there. They're setting the standard for our clients in our local area. And that allows us to set the standard for the conversation on, how can we improve things? The last thing that we've done for this, and I've had some really good success with this particular table, and some people might be resistant to this, but when we acquire a new client, a lot of times I like to take their information and put them on this table. And some people might think that's relatively disheartening unless, a lot of times clients that we acquire have not had significant consulting experience or had team meetings and things like that before. So what we do is we'll bring them on this table, let them know where they stand overall with all of our clients, which then allows us to show them the areas of opportunity on their dairy, but also the areas of opportunity in partnering with us through consulting and training to improve their bottom line, to improve things on their operation. And it kind of shows them, it gives them a future view of what our particular clinic has been able to do with other clients that have worked with us and partnered with us and really put in the time, money, and effort, to follow some of the recommendations we've given. and shows them, hey, you can get here. We promise we're not just BSing you. We're not just trying to get you to a number. We know we can get you there. We've got other dairies there. We promise if you buy in, we can get you there eventually. So again, a great onboarding strategy for new clients or new consulting clients when you're reaching out to them. So I'd just like to thank everybody again for joining me for this short course from operators to owners. Again, I'm going to put one more plug in. I'm going to do a full training, again, 2-week training on how to create this document, how to get information, how to onboard clients, how to market it to clients, how to create conversation, how to follow up with follow-up meetings. All of that's going to be included in the first 2 weeks of January. If you want to be included in that, you can join our community today, again, at otovets.com/Facebook. Put your email in, you'll get onto the email list so I can get you that email out as soon as that class releases. And if you join the Facebook group, we have a great community, good discussion. And again, you're going to get daily content from me that's private to that group. And you're also going to be the first to know about blogs, first to know about podcasts, first to know about short courses. All of those kinds of things are first unveiled inside that group. So join us again, otovets.com/Facebook, or stop by our website at otovets.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.